Through the storied history of the Washington Commanders, there have been only two teams in this franchise's history to win more games in a single season than Washington did in 2024. And after having two of the more surprising wins of the entire playoffs last year, Washington's season of destiny finally came to an end. Jayden Daniels was the obvious story of the year, and after he seemingly got better and better after every single week, he already is challenging well-established starters in this league to be considered one of the best of them all. This team was very obviously well coached as well. Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, and Joe Witt all were in their first year with the team, and they also got the chance to bring a lot of talent in through free agency or the draft and use those players to mold their team for the future and the present. Jayden Daniels obviously came in and was the guy from day one. While yes, there were a few games where he maybe was a little bit below average, nowadays that's virtually every quarterback besides maybe one or two in any given year. I think if you look at games 12 through 16 last year, you see an absolutely elite quarterback. If you want to look at his opponents and nitpick against the quality of defense he was playing, that's somewhat fair, but I still think that what he did against Philadelphia and Atlanta late last year, they show that he's the closest thing that we have in the NFL to Lamar Jackson, and probably the exact guy you want if you're trying to draft Lamar 2.0. Something that shows the great play of Daniels and his ability to lead this offense efficiently is the conversion percentages for the Commanders in 2024. They were 6th in third down conversion rate, 1st and 4th down conversion rate, and 6th in the red zone. All marks of an offense that is well coached as well as very talented. While not as statistically strong last year as the offense, the defense had their own new faces that really showed out as well. Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu formed an all-pro duo at the linebacker spot. Dante Fowler had arguably his best season as a pro with 10.5 sacks, and Mikey Sainristil came in and provided steady play as a rookie as basically the number one guy in that position group. There was a very conceited effort in the offseason this year for the Commanders to get even better. They added Javon Kinlaw and Von Miller, as well as Jonathan Jones in free agency. They also drafted Ole Miss standout corner Trey Amos. And while the team did lose some guys this offseason that were big impacts in 2024, like Jonathan Allen and Dante Fowler, they also lost somebody in the back end in Jeremy Chin, who was another guy who added to the team in 2024. Now we see him leave after 1 year, and he's, even in that 1 year, leaving a very big void. Offensively is where I could see this team having a small regression statistically. The Terry McLaurin situation really doesn't seem great to me. You have the chance to have a number one receiver with a really good quarterback still in his really developmental stage of his young years. And the Commanders aren't willing to meet the demands of that number one wide receiver. There's reports that $30 million is what Terry McLaurin is asking for, and you compare that to other guys in the 2019 draft class like Ja'Marr Chase, DK Metcalf, and Garrett Wilson, that number, $30 million a year, would put Terry McLaurin in that conversation in terms of contract value. Now, I agree, Terry McLaurin is not at the level of Ja'Marr Chase, but a case could be made that what he has done in his career with the quarterbacks he had prior to Jayden Daniels is equally, if not more impressive than what DK Metcalf or Garrett Wilson have done with their own situations. After McLaurin at the wide receiver spot is Deebo Samuel, Noah Brown, Jalen Lane, and Luke McCaffrey. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that the running back room is elite with Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, but what really is going to make or break this squad with or without Terry McLaurin is the offensive line. With a quarterback as mobile and as accurate as a passer as Jayden Daniels, the O-line just needs to provide him with a good 2 to 3 seconds so that he can make the right play. The Commanders traded for Laramie Tunsil, and they drafted Oregon tackle Josh Conerly in the first round. While Conerly currently finds himself as the backup right tackle, if you look up the depth chart for the Commanders, currently, if he has a good to great showing in the preseason, I have no doubt that he could find himself in the starting lineup. So with him, Laramie Tunsil, and the holdovers from last year's offensive line, they got better, but on the interior with guys like Sam Cosmi, they aren't necessarily the greatest unit along that offensive line. And again, this is what's going to make or break this team, is whether or not the offensive line performs better, at least up to the same caliber as they were last year. If they're any worse, this team's not going to succeed as much as they did in 2024. Defensively, I feel like the secondary, mostly the cornerback room, they were able to furnish a full group through the draft this year, through trading for Marshon Lattimore last year. And it's weird to think of, but Marshon Lattimore is kind of an addition through the offseason to this team. Yes, he was traded for last year, but he played in only 2 games in the regular season as well as the 3 playoff games. So you got Marshon Lattimore for only 25% of the season last year on the field. If you get, it's hard to imagine Marshon Lattimore nowadays playing 16, 17 games due to the fact that he's missed 7 or more in the last 3 years. But now he kind of has a veteran presence to him. He's been in the league. This is going to be his 8th year as an NFL professional football player. He's still only 28 or 29, I believe. And he's a guy that is a proven player at corner. He's a guy who's been all pro. He's a guy who's been in conversations for Defensive Player of the Year before. This is a really good addition to the secondary with young guys like Mikey Samerstill and Trey Amos. Now, the pass rush, it's where I see a big drop-off. This could hurt the secondary as well. Yes, Von Miller is a Hall of Famer, and Frankie Lavu has turned into an incredible pass rusher from that middle linebacker spot. But losing Dante Fowler is going to make a somewhat thin pass rushing group even thinner. Losing Jonathan Allen is going to lose a lot of your interior ability to get after the passer, as well as a guy who could stop the run really well. There was really nothing added to the front 7 this year through free agency or the draft. So I really kind of fear what might happen to this defense statistically, and afterwards what might happen to the offense statistically if both of these groups, like I'm kind of alluding to, I think there's going to be a bit of a regression to the mean this year for both teams statistically. Now, Washington has a pretty good schedule ahead of them. They have some games where, they play the Giants two games a year. If Dallas is terrible, they play Dallas twice a year. They play the Raiders. They play some teams that they should beat pretty easily. But they also have games, especially games on the road, against playoff teams, against teams that won the division last year, against teams that won and went to the Super Bowl last year. And so I think 11-6 would be a really good year for Washington, coming off of pretty much a surprise year last year, proving that it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't something that was a flash in the pan from Jaden Daniels, from his coaching staff, from the defense. If they are able to replace what they lost in free agency, if they're able to find production out of guys that we're not expecting, if they're able to bring Terry McLaurin back to the team through an extension and have him play at his usual pace, 11-6, 12-5, that's an easily attainable record for this team, back either in the wild card, or if Philly has some struggles during the year, Washington could find themselves winning the NFC East. If things don't pan out as well, I still see this team as a winning record. I still see that we might just get like one of these years from Jaden Daniels where things might go wrong and he still lifts this team up, provides, MVP caliber play, puts this team in position to win games late. And again, like 9-8, you win more than 50% of your games, you have a pretty good chance of at least sneaking into the wild card round. And once you're there, anything can happen. This team was a wild card team last year, and they almost went to the frickin' Super Bowl. So, again, I'm not looking at it as much as like record-wise this year with Washington. I'm looking at it more of what more do we get out of Jaden Daniels? What more do we get out of this offense? What more can we get? If it's less than last year, they're still going to be good. They're still going to be a team that can make the playoffs and win a couple of games if they get there. But if they play up to their potential, this could be a team pushing again to make a Super Bowl run.